Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Financial Advisors Want to Know podcast. I'm Catherine Tindall, and today with me, I have a very special guest, Mark Heynen. He is with Knapsack AI. They are a really cool AI company that I connected with Mark a couple of months ago, looking at what they were building, because AI is something I'm really interested about within my own firm, but I know it's something that a lot of you firm owners out there are getting more and more interested in, because when it comes to getting better labor margins from people in the firm, getting your own time back, being able to leverage automations is a huge value add when you can get those systems implemented properly. So I'm really excited to have you on today, Mark.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so we connected because we both found each other mutually on LinkedIn, and I was really interested to see. Mark showed me a little demo of what him and his team are building, and it looked really exciting in terms of some of the automations and things that they're starting to build for firms. But where would you like to start today's conversation, Mark?
Yeah, it might be good to start thinking generally about where we are at with financial advisors, RIAs using AI. And I know you have a lot of experience working with your clients. I'm just curious, what have you seen in terms of challenges in adopting AI and the promise of adopting AI within firms?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge, what I've seen in the advisor firms compared to, say, like in other professional services, is that the compliance environment is so much stricter in terms of their data security and making sure they're staying compliant with how client data is being accessed, et cetera, that it makes them a lot slower than other professional services style firms have to operate. So for instance, like within my firm, we were able to get AI implemented pretty quickly for certain functions like note taking and things like that, though we're exploring with adding more automations in. I know for a lot of the advisors, especially if they're with a brokerage, if they're IBD, it's really up to whoever they're with, allowing them to use certain tools, which I know certain AI tools have started to get approved by different brokerages. Like I know LPL just did an approval for Jump, which is an AI note taker. So it's there, but that just happened. Like that was like a month or two ago. So it's really, a lot of these things are just now starting to be even available as tools for them because of the compliance issues. But for those who have started using them, like some of the statistics and time saving figures are so impressive. And I think one of the things that I'm the most excited at looking at some of these tools is just the fact that so much, even on my side of the house with the tax advisory piece, the amount of time that you can save by automating a lot of this, it's computers talking to computers, it's software talking to software, automating those pieces and getting the human beings out of it, it just becomes a way to really, 10x your business without having to add on a bunch of, other people in order to get there. So that's what I've been seeing so far. It's been kind of slow, but more and more interest. I think it's going to continue to be kind of slow and laggard, probably just because of some of the age demographics, broadly across the industry. That's what I would expect to see. But in terms of like younger advisors picking up AI, I think once, especially for the RIAs, depending on how big they are, if they're smaller and they're, you're your own chief compliance officer kind of setups, they're going to be way faster with implementing these tools than, say, like your bigger RIAs, where it has to go through multiple layers and implementation could be tougher. But has that been what you've been seeing, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are a couple different dimensions to this. I think the first dimension is really around, I think of it as really as a productivity and a capacity problem. We have a situation where, as you covered with Jason Diamond on a previous show, the average age of a financial advisor is quite high. I think the last stats I saw was about 20 or 25% of financial advisors are at or above retirement age. And then the issue is that the new advisors have a very high failure rate. I think 72% of new advisors, basically abandon, are not able to make it. And so you have this issue where it's hard to bring people on to grow your practice to meet the demand, and there is a lot of demand, and the demand is growing with the great wealth transfer and with an aging population. We have more demand than ever before. So it's interesting that we have this capacity problem, and so I think this is where AI can play a major role in streamlining your mid office and back office to allow you to be more efficient with your time, and B, if you're a young advisor, to actually have a higher success rate in terms of having best practices baked in terms of using AI to automate key pieces of your work. So I've definitely seen that. In terms of the key entry points for advisors to start using this, I think I have seen, in terms of what's promising, AI note-taking is definitely the greatest entry point, because we all do meetings, and the client interactions are sort of core to what happens when, it's core to the job, effectively. It's where you get to know your clients, where you really understand how to, make sure that you're doing them a great service. Ultimately, the challenge with those AI note takers has always been compliance and data security. If someone is an RAA, you have a number of regulations you need to meet. You have books and records. You have a lot of concerns around making sure that it is stored. You don't want to be uploading client information into multiple clouds. With note takers, you actually have 3 different clouds. You have the actual app provider. Then you have the transcription service, and then you have the AI cloud in the back end, and your client data is being shared to all 3 of those. And so you mentioned Jump AI. It's a great example, right? Jump AI, SOC 2 certified. They've made sure they are themselves certified, but they do share all the data with OpenAI, and you are trusting it is on the OpenAI cloud, and OpenAI has its own agendas. And so you'd have no security there. And that is not sufficient for a number of advisors we talk to. And so that is actually a big concern for AI note takers in general. And this is where we saw a big gap. And this is where we, as Knapsack, realized we need to address this. The promise is great, but the compliance concerns are also significant, and we need to make it compliant. And then finally, I think you talked about sort of, it needs to be easy. We really want to provide an easy button where people can use things immediately without having to learn a bunch of new stuff. And we wanted to make sure it's turnkey. So ultimately what we did is, first of all, made sure it's completely private and compliant. So we're starting with a note taker, something that everyone understands. And we do the transcription privately. To be clear, it's on device, and we also do the note taking privately. In the cases we do access cloud, the data is deleted immediately once it reaches the cloud, something OpenAI does not do. So this is something that we have arranged to make sure we have complete privacy and compliance. In terms of the notes themselves, we have the option to delete the recording right away. That was a concern a lot of our clients had. And then the transcript itself can be stored. You have the 5-year requirement for a lot of people who have the books and records concern, and that you have full control over storage of the transcript. So that has been a big unlock for a number of our users. And then we realized that, well, actually, once we actually have synced up with your data, we can actually do so much more for you. So because we are private, people trust us to sync their email, calendar events, and Drive, and ultimately we can implement a lot more automations on top of that. We call them naps, and make life a lot easier for the advisors.
Yeah, that's great. And then in terms of, I think for most people, like one of the biggest advantages that I've seen with the AI note-taking tools is like coordinating with other team members and them having access to being able to be in the same meeting as me without having to spend the time and, review something that a client said. How has that been, that kind of functionality worked with NAP?
Yeah, it's definitely, that coordination piece is a big benefit to using these kinds of tools. So, first of all, I'll just state the obvious. If you record a transcript and you share the transcript, people can see what's happening. Even better, you can share notes and people can have notes available. I think it gets to a more fundamental issue, which is, we've been using CRMs now for, a couple of decades, and CRMs seem to be, people have a love-hate relationship with their CRM, it seems. It's something people feel compelled to use because of compliance concerns. They want to collaborate across the firm, obviously. But ultimately, entering data in the CRM is never fun. It's just difficult, and often it's not done. And then you enter into a different problem where it's incomplete, so you don't know what's done and what's not done. And that's always an issue. One of the problems we realized we could solve with this, considering we are synced with your email and calendar events, and we are basically capturing information through the notes, is that we can actually capture the information automatically without you having to save it manually into a CRM. We can sync it back to the CRM. So I appreciate people are using, Wealthbox and Redtail and will want to store data there. But ultimately, you don't have to enter the data. It just automatically syncs. And more importantly, if an auditor comes by and says, I want to read out of your last 6 months of client meetings, it's all automatically saved, within Knapsack. And you can also run auditor automations to basically generate that reporting without too much trouble. So it's really automating a lot of that back-end work that has typically required entering manual data into a CRM.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. And in terms of, you guys have built something with the really with the compliant restriction in mind, but in terms of other activities that you've seen advisors have success with, ways that they're force multiplying their abilities by, 100% or whatever it is, 100x, using AI besides just the note-taking function and updating the CRM. Are there other things that you've seen people have success with, or specific examples of workflows that you've been seeing a lot of advisors implementing? Just a slight interruption in this conversation. I wanted to bring to your attention two things that are important for you to know. So, we're always at the mercy of social media algorithms. So, if you can subscribe to the show, that would mean a lot to me. Even more to me if you can leave a rating and let me know what you think about it. But we have a new newsletter that's coming out. It's going to be very active in 2025. That is specifically around tax issues that I'm seeing advisors face in their own practices, changes in legislations, and the pieces that I think are critically important for you to stay ahead of as an advisor with the new administration. So nearby, wherever you're interacting with this, will be the link of how to sign up for our newsletter. Also nearby will be the link to my LinkedIn, which is the best way to get in touch with me, learn more about what we're doing for advisors in the tax strategy and compliance work that we do, and also to get access to the various tools and interviews and things that I do, specifically designed to help you improve your practice, improve your own tax situation, etc. So let's get back to the episode, and thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think of it in terms of the funnel, right? So top of the funnel, a lot of people want to do social media posting and newsletters to generate leads, but they have trouble, making time to do that. There's also a compliance concern. They want to make sure those are compliant. We have created an automation to enable that, to effectively automatically create very intelligent, posts and newsletters that are not just taking what's out on the internet. It does include that, and that's what you might get if you use ChatGPT, for example, but also draws from your emails, calendar events, your data. So it's completely personalized. And so much higher quality. And that then gets, your top of funnel going. We are also enabling personalized monthly updates. And so, a lot of people send monthly updates, the same monthly update to all their clients. Here, you can actually do a certain level of personalization, which, seems to be what people want. Seems 70% of clients surveyed want a personalized recommendations from their financial advisors regularly. So I think that would make people more effective. There's also an automation around lead scoring. So ultimately, you really want to see money in motion, see what leads are out there, and try to score them based on information available on the web. And also scan your inbox for leads. You probably have been interacting with a number of people. There might be people in your inbox who you want to reach back out to, and you want to qualify them based on available data on the web. That's another automation that we provide. And then further down the funnel, you have, you've set up a bunch of meetings. Ultimately, you can then do meeting prep. And so you can effectively make sure you're fully prepared for the meeting. There's been some great podcasts. Kitses did a great podcast on great meeting prep, doing 20 meetings a week. That's generally a good thing to spend more time with your clients, but being prepared for those meetings is important. So we automate that meeting prep, obviously automating the note taking, allowing you to take your own notes, augmenting those notes, and then automating the follow-up. So, onboarding a new client is typically very time intensive. There are certain things that you need from the client. You then take those things and generate an initial set of recommendations or a financial plan or a financial summary. Now, those are things that we have created automations for as well. Those automations can be customized if people would like to customize them. And then, further down the funnel, it's really making sure that you're staying in touch. You want to make sure you stay in touch every 6 months or so. And so having automations that do that. And then finally, compliance automations, just making sure that you're staying on top of whatever state and federal notices are coming in, and making sure that all of your emails are FINRA compliant or whatever your regulating body might be.
Yeah, that's great. So it sounds like, in terms of plugging in tools, like plugging in this tool into an existing ecosystem, it sounds like there are certain apps that it would replace. What are common things that you've seen people, it's funny, like with a lot of advisors that I talk to, it kind of turns into like a Frankenstein app structure inside of their firm, where it's like, we want this, so then we add on this app, and then we wanted this, so then we add on this app. In terms of some of those infrastructural pieces, like, have you seen firms able to like reduce the complexity level of how many apps they're using by using the AI tools, or what does that look like in terms of the AI tools interacting with other pieces of their tech infrastructure?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been this explosion of little apps, and every advisor needs to, first of all, decide which app to use, make sure it's compliant, and then start using it. And then often you're moving data between all the apps, which is complicated in itself.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of, let's go through the funnel again, just to think about which apps you could replace here. I mean, I think in terms of top of the funnel, with marketing, this would replace, Advisor X, Wealth Management GPT, or any other, sort of off-the-shelf marketing tool you might have. Even prospecting, you might replace things like WealthFeed, Catchlight, tools like that. In lead gen, you might replace Coupler or Lead Center, those kinds of tools. In terms of sales, in terms of actually getting your sales motion going, I think we're really talking about replacing your Zoom note taker, whatever other note taker you may be using. A lot of people I've learned from spending time with them are actually using Microsoft Word. I heard of one person dictating into Microsoft Word for their notes after a meeting, sending Word documents back and forth. This would actually reduce that as well. And then you might have basically other tools later on that you would be trying to use to stay in touch. So I think you would actually probably spend less time on your CRM. While things would be saved to your CRM, you would not need to mine it for information as much. It would automatically push to you. And so ultimately, I think that would reduce the dependence on Wealthbox or Redtail, and would actually allow you to spend more time with your clients.
Yeah, that's great. Less time working on the work and just more time, getting the work organized and just working on the work, right? And spending the time with the clients. Because I've heard some, figures of like really significant admin time being cut just by implementing like one tool in one part of the funnel. And so to have something that's more comprehensive, that is amazing. So when people are going to, when firms are going to implement this, like you were saying, usually the first easiest win is around the note-taking function, like meeting follow-up, just because that's where a lot of the admin work is happening. How long does it usually take in terms of like man hours or timeline for firms to get that up and running and going? Is it a pretty significant time investment, or how does that usually work?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. This is an area where I saw a lot of challenge. A lot of the tools that are out there require understanding a lot of detailed processes and trying to get set up and then do a lot of configuration. We set this up where it's a desktop app that you download and you get up and running right away. You connect your your work account, whether you use Microsoft or G Suite, Google Suite, and you are up and running immediately with initially an AI note taker, and then you can add on the other automations without having to configure very much. And so the idea is you're up and running within 20 or 30 minutes, and you can start using it across your team. And I think that is actually the beauty, by the way, of a desktop app, because we are completely private. We can sync the data to the desktop. We don't see the data ourselves, to be really clear. And then immediately, because it has access to all your data, it can immediately be useful. You don't have to do a lot of other work.
Yeah, that's great. That's really cool. So for advisors who are listening to this, Mark, like what are some things that you encounter often that are maybe mindset problems or misunderstandings or those kinds of apprehensions about using this kind of technology that you've encountered? And what's some wisdom that you can share with the audience in terms of how they should be thinking about these tools or the compliance restrictions or any of those pieces that are maybe common objections that you get from advisors when it comes to implementing this that you think everyone should hear?
Yeah, I think one thing I've heard quite often is I don't have time to check out this AI stuff. I think
Yeah.
advisors are stretched because of the things I mentioned at the top. There's just this capacity issue, and this is a situation where a little investment in optimizing your workflow and actually increasing your productivity will go a long way. It really is
Yeah.
similar to learning about email in the late 90s, or learning about some of the CRM tools in the 2000s. This is something that you need to make a little investment in now, but it will pay off over and over again. And I think ultimately, because we are, a lot of advisors I've talked to have used the same tools for a long time, and it generally works well for them. And we're in a relationship-based business, so you are not in a technology business. You feel like as long as the relationships are great, I don't need to worry about it. You don't know what you don't know, and so what's really interesting is that when advisors start using AI for meeting prep, for example, or to mine their data, they end up finding new, interesting insights that bring them closer to clients, and it has a direct effect on that client relationship. So it does tie directly to, the core thing a lot of advisors want to do. One thing we found is that you can actually start to look online for things that are happening that are relevant to your clients' interests, and reach out to them in a context that's outside of your quarterly check-in, and build a very different relationship with your clients. And so it's opening up an entirely new avenue. And so I would tell advisors listening to this, don't be intimidated. Don't be afraid. There's more that you can do than ChatGPT. If ChatGPT has not worked for you, or if you're concerned about it because of the privacy and security reasons that you don't want to upload client data into ChatGPT, there are other tools out there, and it's important to experiment. It's important to try things out and see if you can optimize your work.
Yeah, no, I think that's really great feedback. And even just on starting to use these tools, going after the low-hanging fruit, right? Like going after the note-taking function and just getting comfortable with that, and then picking away at all these different functions and seeing, okay, what, I always like to do when new clients come in for us and we do our assessment, one of the pieces I do pretty early on with them is, what's the value of your time assessment? And realizing that, okay, if you're making X number of dollars per year, we divide that by 2,000 hours. This is roughly the value of your time. If you're spending your time doing activities that are below that dollar value, you're really not increasing the leverage that you have in your practice and growing it. And this is particularly true for smaller operations. And so what I love about these AI tools is that even if you can chip away at 20% of your administrative time, that's going to bump that number up so much, just because if you're shifting from those lower leverage activities to those higher leverage activities, you just get such a higher return on the more time that you can spend on those higher leverage activities. And I think AI is a great tool to do that, because it's unlike employees who can leave and quit, it's a tool that once you have it in place and you keep it updated as you go, it's roughly like that one-time investment. But so for people who are interested in learning more about the work that you and your team are doing, Mark, what's the best way for them to get to know better some of the tools you guys are building?
Best thing to do is to go to knapsack.ai. So knapsack, like the backpack.ai. And we have, an app you can download. Right now, it's only available on Mac and Copilot Plus PCs, but very shortly we'll have a new version that includes AI note-taking that will be available across all PCs. And that will obviously be available for free for people to try out. And then they can then upgrade to try different automations as they see fit. So it's available to try, and I would highly encourage people to get in touch if they want to, get help with using AI within their practice or create custom automations that will help them, use compliant AI within their organization.
Yeah, I love it. Well, for those of you listening, definitely take Mark up on it. I don't know about you, but I'm a huge fan of just noodling around in something, even if it's, you just try it out with like just some dummy data or something like that just to start with. But so I want to thank you, Mark, for coming on the show. Any closing thoughts that you have for those listening?
I think we live in an exciting time, and I am looking forward to spending more time with your listeners.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. And for those of you listening, we'll have nearby, wherever you're interacting with this, the link to take a look at Knapsack, and then also, Mark's LinkedIn if you want to connect with him and keep updated on some of the cool things that they're doing, because this is a really fast-moving field, and I'm really excited seeing all the improvements that we've just gotten in the past 6 months. What things are going to look like a year from now, I think is going to be amazing and dramatically different. So thanks again, Mark, for coming on the show. And for those of you listening, this was another episode of the Financial Advisors Want to Know Show.